Hello.
Hello.
And this is Finish Big.
Episode 2.
So we are listening our way through Big Finish in order.
We have already gone for a little adventure with Bernice Summerfield through Series 1 of Bernice Summerfield, minus Dragon's Wrath.
Dragon's Wrath, yes. Dragon's Wrath will be next time. Dragon's Wrath.
But now we are skipping into the Jolly Hockey Sticks world of Doctor Who.
After the Bernice series, Big Finish got the license to do official, brand new Doctor Who. This is the real thing, everyone.
Well, I'm not gonna go into too much depth about how that came about, but essentially, Big Finish had an ally at BBC Enterprises in the form of Steve Cole, who absolutely wanted to make Doctor Who audio adventures, but they didn't really have the budget or the facilities to do it, and managed to convince the BBC, well, we could get them to make this and we'll reap the rewards. Happy days. And they had the Bernice Summerfield Series 1 as an example of how good these things could be.
They obviously didn't hear Beyond the Sun then.
Or Dragon's Wrath.
This was very exciting, and obviously poor old BBV audios that have been going, obviously they got very worried, so no more Crinoid audio adventures, probably no Professor and Ace.
Interestingly, a lot of the contributors to those BBV audios obviously created Big Finish and worked for Big Finish. Nick Briggs, Gary Russell. And they absolutely, because I sourced the Big Finish inside storybook for all my facts and figures. Gary Russell says absolutely, because there was in the Genocide Machine, which is in the next, obviously our next episode, not this one. There was a character that from the BBV audios that Mike Tucker wrote into that script, and Gary Russell said, "No, take it out. I don't want any kind of connection between Big Finish and audio visuals or BBV." So they were deliberately pushing away. So the poor fellow who created the BBV audio, well, he must be very sad right now.
Well, exactly. And I did get a few of the BBVs because we were all, in the 90s, we were clamoring to get what we could, couldn't we?
We were desperate. I say it every time.
So this comes along and they get Sylvester McCoy, Colin Baker and Peter Davison signed up to play the Doctor again. Amazing.
It was amazing, but it's so funny to think now, isn't it? Because obviously Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy are kind of infamously considered the fag end of classic Who, aren't they? And sort of like the not the best Doctors. Now that's not something I prescribe to, because Colin Baker's my favourite. I don't know where they fall for you. Where do these three Doctors fall for you then?
Fairly equally, and I go through different phases. That is
such a vanilla answer. I like them all the same.
Well, obviously Paul McGann is my favourite, but no, I like them all. You have sort of they're different flavours, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you feel like a Colin Baker. I don't know what I was about to go like that. I don't know what that means. And sometimes you feel like a Sylvester McCoy, or you get into that period of time, or you feel a bit more like a Peter Davison, a bit of a, whatever that is.
I've never fancied Colin Baker or Sylvester McCoy or Peter Davison.
Okay, I'm not saying I fancy them. I'm just saying I fancied the flavour of
you didn't say that.
So today we are talking about the Sirens of Time.
The girl.
Phantasmagoria.
I can't say I favour this coffee stuff myself, Flowers. Tastes like something that's dropped out of the back end of a cow.
Whispers of Terror.
I don't have a quote for that one, I'm afraid.
The Land of the Dead.
Oh no, I don't have a quote for that one either. I'm so sorry.
And The Fearmonger.
Pay no attention. It's just your worst nightmare.
There we are. So that's the first 5 releases, the first 5 Doctor Who releases.
I've got a feeling, that I'm kinder on these stories than you.
So these stories, right? Okay. I think everybody got the Sirens of Time because it was so exciting. It was the first one. I sent my check off in the post.
Oh, did you do it that way? Oh, I went off to Forbidden Planet and bought the cassette.
I got the CD in the post.
Oh, you
So
straight to
exciting.
CDs? Straight to CDs.
Oh yeah, I never got the cassette. No, straight to CD.
So sophisticated, Mark, honestly.
Because it was all over Doctor Who magazine. They did, they did a free CD with Doctor Who magazine all about it. And I was like, oh my God, these three it was one, it's official Doctor Who. Two, it's these actors coming back. And three, the first story, the Sirens of Time, they're going to meet as well. These doctors are going to meet, which is always an exciting event. I mean, it happens all the time now at Big Finish. So,
I mean, it's an exciting event until you listen to the bloody thing.
I can see exactly why they wanted to start off the range with this. To showcase, we've got these three doctors. It makes perfect sense. Each doctor has an episode, then they meet up at the end. Yeah, conceptually, yeah. What else would you do?
Even structurally, right? The idea of having an episode for Sylvester McCoy, an episode for Peter Davison, an episode for Colin Baker, and then the three of them coming together. That's a great idea.
Oh, do you know what? I've not done my facts yet. We've gone straight into this. I'll just do my facts for the Sirens of Time before we go into this proper.
Hit it.
So, the Sirens of Time was released in July 1999 on CD and cassette, but written by Nicholas Briggs. Obviously stars Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy. Also featuring Michael Wade, Sarah Mowat, Maggie Stables, and Mark Gatiss. Directed by Nicholas Briggs with music by Nicholas Briggs. So Nicholas Briggs had a very busy start.
Well, okay, so we need to talk about this, all right? So the Big Finish inside story details that there was a meeting of all of the the kind of prestigious New Adventures style writers. So Paul Cornell's there, Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss, Mark Platt, Gary Russell, Nick Briggs, all those sort of contributors are there. And by all accounts, some shit went down, right? So I know I love a bit of goss, but they published it, all right? I'm just reading it, okay? And anyway, they announced that Nicholas Briggs is going to be doing the first story. And there's outrage across the board, right? Paul Cornell is quoted by Nicholas Briggs as saying, the first story should be written by a special writer, and that, darling, ain't you.
You wish you was at that party.
Oh my God, I wish I was a fly on the wall at that party.
You'd be staring it all up.
What? No, I would not. How dare you? And apparently Stephen Moffat stormed out because he heard that there was going to be no Paul McGann audios at that point, and that's all he wanted to write for.
I can understand now. Yeah, okay, I can see that point of view. You're like, oh, Nicholas Briggs. But actually, he'd done all the audiovisual stuff before, so he was experienced. And they're not sure how it's going to go. They've got to play it safe. And budget-wise, they're probably like, well, we can only pay like Nick Briggs. And I'm sure he did a lot of extra stuff, rather than paying the music and the writer and everything. It was probably a budget thing as well that they just had to try before.
Well, this was written and directed and scored by Nicholas Briggs. It's practically a passion project. I can only think of new Doctor Who stories like Planet of the Spiders, which was written and directed by Barry Letts, where someone's had this opportunity to basically bring this thing to life in every single way possible. I'm surprised he didn't act in it as well. I bet there's some voices by Nicholas Briggs in there too.
Yeah, there is. But I know people are like, oh, why is he doing this? And even nowadays, you get like a new box set announced, and they're like, oh, one's written by Nicholas Briggs or it's directed by Nicholas Briggs. But actually, I just think it comes down to budget. I think you do a new Big Finish box set, we can afford 2 new writers, but we can't afford a third and an extra director. So that's what you do, and that's what you all do when you're trying to budget something. I do that at events at work. I don't get in a separate like 3 or 4 people to do different things. I have to do it myself because you can't afford to get all these people in. And they are on a small company on a budget. So I am sticking up for Nicholas Briggs. I think ideally you wouldn't hear his voice come up all the time because it's very recognizable. So it takes you out of it a little bit. But if he wants to write and direct and do the music, I understand is what I'm trying to say.
2 things I have to say about that. One is I agree with you and I disagree with you. I agree with you that at this point, yes, they're on a low budget, and to have one person do everything, probably for a low fee, that absolutely makes sense. Somewhere along the lines, Gary Russell stepped out of Big Finish, and we'll get there, and Nicholas Briggs took over. Yeah, Nicholas Briggs is essentially in creative control of Big Finish. Yeah, and nowadays it's nothing to do with budget, because Big Finish is making a bloody mint. The A-list actors they can pull in and things like this, like they are making money, Big Finish. Nowadays, if Nicholas Briggs is, and he's always there, he was there at the beginning of the War Master set, at the beginning of the Fourth Doctor set, at the beginning of the Third Doctor Adventure set, like he always kicks off these things. And it's just, he's in charge and he wants to do it. And that, and you know, like, there's probably some ego involved. And, you know, like, I'm not going to say Nicholas Briggs does not have an ego. We all do. Absolutely. He wants to be there at the beginning, and then he kind of hands over the reins after that. My issue with that is, I'm sorry, Nicholas Briggs is not the strongest writer on Big Finish's roll call. Okay.
Right. Let's just talk about the Sirens of Time.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yes.
But because, okay.
Why do you keep me under control every time I'm being critical?
Linked to that, my first experience with the Sirens of Time, really excited, got it in the post, took the CD out, put it straight in to listen to. You've got Gallifrey, you've got the TARDIS noise. It's really exciting. Then you go into that first episode with the Seventh Doctor, and it just wasn't that particularly exciting.
This is a terrible opening for Big Finish.
It's tough. It's a tough one to get through. It's not. There's a few things that aren't clear for me. Maybe that's just personally me. I don't know if that's going to come up again. It takes me ages to, I don't know. I just didn't get it. And I don't know how old I was. I don't know, 11, 12, 13 maybe. It didn't capture my interest. It didn't. And I'm used to audio drama. I'd always listened to lots of audio drama before Big Finish. That's not the problem. It just, this first story does not grab you. And yeah, it's just never one that I would want to go back to, or I choose to go back to. And I wonder how many people thought, oh, right, because fans, they all want to start at the beginning, don't they? Go through the list in order, like we are. I wonder how many people got the Sirens of Time and was like, oh, is this what they're all like?
Well, apparently this one still sells well and sold brilliantly at the time, obviously. And it's like, you know, like I've got a podcast, you've got a podcast. I'm almost one of my most listened to episodes is my first one, because people go in, that's where people start, you know. This is not very well written.
But we could be forgiving that to say, okay, like the first of anything, if they're just starting out and they're just getting used to stuff. But actually, they've done a whole series of Bernice.
Yeah, no, they should know.
So it's not like it's their first ever and they're trying stuff.
And Briggs
it's more the scripts than anything else.
Briggs does better stuff in the first 50 main. He comes back a couple of times and he writes far better. Creatures of Beauty is a sublime script. So it's not like he's incapable of writing really good Doctor Who. This is just like the first episode with Sylvester McCoy in that swamp planet. It's so confusing.
Hold on, Alenia. You're not Alenia, I take it.
The girl?
Your girl? Yes, the girl. Your girl?
Terrible. Like, I love what Maggie Stables is doing, because she's just going for it, isn't she? She's playing this like half warthog, half human character.
Okay, we'll go in. Let's just talk about that first episode. So yeah, you've got Maggie Stables as, I didn't get that she was a warthog. I don't know. I didn't understand.
In her interview that she was asked to play half warthog, half human.
I'm the doctor. You're not Selenia, I take it?
Doctor! Doctor! Is that you? Oh, hurry, please!
Do you know where the girl is? The girl!
The girl?
Yes, the girl! Can you show me where she is? Take me to her. She's in trouble.
Doctor, your girl?
Yes, girl!
See Ted soon.
Get out of my way.
The concept of going through these episodes is each episode the Doctor encounters a siren in the disguise of a girl. So we have
Elenia
in this one.
That's Sarah Mara. In each episode, she's playing the siren character, but it's a different guise within each episode.
Which I understood that and I got that and that was exciting, but then I don't get the point of it, but we'll talk about that.
I don't get the point of any of this story, if I'm honest.
So the doctor, he's trying to save Alenia, and then you have Maggie Stables as Ruth Lee, and I didn't. And there's a Knight of Alicia or Knight of
one of the oldest or the last surviving Knight of Alicia, and this is something that comes back again and again in Big Finish. They lean on the Knights of Alicia. I'm not entirely sure what they are, if I'm honest.
No, I come out of it. That's what happened. I just come out of this every time being like, I don't know what's just happened. I don't know why things have happened, or I just don't get it.
Essentially, that first episode is Sylvester McCoy finding that girl and then finding the man and then the cliffhanger. And that's all that happens. There is no narrative whatsoever. It ain't building up to anything. It's just that for 25 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the sound design is good.
The sound design is always fairly good.
It's just a shame that there's nothing more to it, I think. And okay, we're talking about Ruth Lee as Maggie Stables. That's a standout performance.
Yeah, because it's
in
just
this episode.
Completely fucking bonkers.
And obviously, we'll get back to Maggie Stables again. She was in Just War previously, and she will come back again soon. So,
Maggie Stables can do no wrong. Okay.
No, and it's a great. It's memorable. That's why we're talking about it 20 years later or however long, because it's a memorable performance and it stands out in this particular production.
You're Sandcrafter.
So, well, that is our drawing challenge of this episode, because you said about being a warthog. In my mind, all I can see, because I know it's Maggie Stables, I imagine it as Maggie Stables for some reason in a bikini, in a leather bikini. I don't know why.
There is no mention of a leather bikini whatsoever.
But I know that she's sort of living, I don't know, sort of living out in the wild, looking after this guy. And I know it's some kind of creature, but it gets messed up in my head. So it's Maggie Stables part sort of creature in a bikini, sort of, because it's like a tropical jungle.
Well, I am dying to see your picture now then. So this time you can go first.
Okay, I'll go first. Then you need to explain what you see. Okay. So this is what I always see when I listen to the Sirens of Time.
Oh my God. Is that Maggie Stables?
Yeah, can't you see it is?
I don't think she would care for that picture, you know. What is the
girl? Big girl. Young girl. This is the Sirens of Time. But if they animate the Sirens of Time, this is what it's going to be.
No, it's going to be this. Are you ready for this?
So what is this what you see when you...
I see her as a warthog, because that's what she said in her interview.
Okay.
But it's a warthog in a purple skirt because it's a female warthog. Okay. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 da.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. I mean, they're not that different.
Can you hold yours up, please? Yeah, they look exactly the same. Jesus Christ.
Your girl, doctor.
Oh, bless. Well, maybe we'll put that out to the vote as to which is the most Ruth Lee.
Yeah, what do you imagine when you listen to the Sirens of Time episode 1? And actually, Sarah Moa as Alenia is pretty good.
I think she's really good in all of these. Like, she puts on different accents and she kind of embodies different characters. And then she plays the evil quite good in the last episode. Frankly, the only decent thing about the last episode.
We have to give a shout out to Michael Wade, who is now the president of Gallifrey. Last time he was the Nazi in Just War.
Yeah, very different. And also Lockwood in Alton, our favourite spin-off series.
Yes. So I enjoyed the Gallifrey bits, actually, more than...
It's all just like, peril on Gallifrey, they're evading Gallifrey. I was like, oh, God almighty. Who gives a shit about Gallifrey? Like, honest to God.
And the next episode 2, is the Peter Davison episode.
Best of the story. By a mile.
He's on a German U-boat, right?
Yeah.
He plays it really, really well. I mean, because Sylvester McCoy he's done the BBVs. He's done a lot of spin-offs between the end of Doctor Who and now in the last, like...
He sounded like he had never read this script in his life, that he just walked in and opened it up.
Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah. Whereas Peter Davison, I think, is an actor of some caliber where he could just, I mean, he probably had the script in advance, but he could just open a script and give an incredibly naturalistic performance. Do you know what's great about him, though, is like his voice is visibly aged. And it gives him more authority than he had when he was on television. I think, for me, Peter Davison on audio is far superior to Peter Davison on television.
He's written slightly different as well. That's funny you say that, because now, 20 years later, he definitely has aged. He does sound very different. But I remember listening to Sirens of Time thinking he sounds exactly like he does on TV to me.
Colin Baker's the same though. Colin Baker in these early ones sounds very like Colin Baker on TV. Now his voice has really aged. I mean, it's still Colin Baker playing the Sixth Doctor, and you know what? Let's not criticize somebody for getting old. We're all going that way, you know. But I certainly think in Davison's case that works in his favour.
I enjoyed this episode the most. I think I followed it the most. Not that, again, that much happens really. The Doctor's stranded.
There's atmosphere and it's historical. So the sound effects were really nice. And Mark Gatiss is in there and he's giving a nice performance as the Nazi character.
The Nazi again from Just War.
I mean, it ain't Just War, is it, this episode? But at least it's... No, I did feel like there was more story in this episode, and I was really enjoying Peter Davison in it. So that was enough for me, I think. Well, what about episode 3?
Sixth Doctor. Okay, the story does ramp up a little bit. I actually had to go on Wiki and look at the plot after I listened to this.
Wow.
Because I did not understand it, and I can tell you about it now. So the Sixth Doctor wakes up on this like cruise liner, which is circling something called the Kurgon Wonder, which is some spacey thing that's out in space. And I don't know what happens. Something happens, and there's a stewardess who is the Siren. The Knights of whatever are invading Gallifrey, and
what's happening in this episode, right, is that a lot of the elements that have started to be introduced in episode 1 and 2 is starting to cohere. So I get what he's doing. He's dropping a few things left, right, and centre in 1 and 2. In 3, it's building into a form of a narrative. So then in 4, when they all come together, all of that plot information is regurgitated, and then the climax hits. In terms of like the structure of a story, it works. In terms of it being interesting or exciting or engaging or just worth listening to, it is not.
Is the temper on like a whale or something? Doesn't someone say that? I imagine a whale in space. The Sirens of Time.
Honestly, God, if your impressions are going to be like this throughout, we're in for a good time.
It's funny because this is the one that I probably listened to, you know, when I first got it, listened to it a lot, and it just sounds so, those lines just stick in your head, because especially all these early ones, just because they've been around for so long in, you know. And then we get onto part 4. We've all been waiting for these doctors to interact.
And what happened here?
Probably something pretty catastrophic, or the three of us wouldn't be here together at the same time.
Yes, there are laws about this sort of thing after all.
Laws that the Temperon saw fit to break. I take it you two were brought here by the Temperon.
Yes.
Not a very comfortable way to travel.
But it certainly seemed less volatile than its close cousins, the Chronivores.
Beware the Sirens of Time.
Sirens of Time.
Never heard of them.
Quite. Perhaps it's time we shared our experiences, agreed?
Agreed. Contact?
Contact.
Part 4 is nothing but a shit ton of exposition and word peril that don't mean nothing to nobody. There is no characters in there at all to give a shit about. There's 3 doctors, but we kind of know they're going to be all right because there's 3 doctors. So, but there's no characters beyond that, beyond the female Siren and the Temperon. Can't do the Temperon again. Thank you. Is that your orgasm noise? Sorry. So why are we supposed to care about any of this? It's like, and do you know what happens? It's like one twist after another. Well, we're actually doing this. No, we're actually doing this. No, the Temporal was actually doing this. No, the Sirens of Time were actually doing. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And why do I care? Like, it's so boring. And I don't know, like, think of the best Big Finish stories where they've got characters that you desperately care about, like Edith in The Chimes of Midnight, or that girl in Spare Parts who gets turned into a Cyberman, and you really care and you're super invested. What is there to be invested in this bollocks?
I wonder if it was difficult because there's no companions in it, and traditionally they'd be explaining to the companion.
Yeah, maybe. And
then you've got the Ellie, the Helen, the Elenia to explain things.
But then, like, maybe if that character had been an actual character, or those three characters had all come along in but obviously they turn out to be the Siren. So
I didn't get so say that first Siren in that first episode, she's stuck in the mud and he rescues her. Why was the Siren there I thought the idea was that she appeared to sort of steer the Doctor in a certain direction, but she didn't though. She just turned up to. Okay,
I'm not sure you're going to get the answers that you want.
It's a shame that the series starts like this, but we know it gets better, and we understand why they tried to do that. But
can I tell you a fascinating fact about this story?
Always.
Oh, thank you. Apparently, originally the villain was supposed to be the Warlord from the War Games. Wait, the Warlord's son.
Why didn't they do that?
It's already been done in one of the New Adventures. Nicholas Briggs didn't know. And they was like, no, that's already been done. You got to do something else. So he brought in the Temporal. Go on, do it again.
What? The Sirens of Time.
And the only other thing from the book I really want to talk to you about, and you might try and cut me off and you might try and shut me down when I say this. But no, come on. Disclaimer. We're going to be honest with this thing. And Nicholas Briggs says in this book, in an interview, and this is published, that he goes, he's never, he talks about how people criticize Sirens of Time, yeah? And he basically says, well, I've never met anybody who has criticized the Sirens of Time whose opinion I respect. So he's essentially saying anyone who criticizes his work is that those opinions aren't worth respecting. And I've seen, like, since this has been out and about other stories, reviewers being, I won't say attacked, but reviewers being frowned upon for not liking his stuff by him. And I do think that if you are going to put out a piece of work that people are paying for, that you should be willing to accept both positive and negative opinions.
It's funny because you're coming from your sort of blog side of things, so you know who wrote what. I don't always tend to pick up on who's written what unless I look it up. So I don't see that's written by Nicholas Briggs, I'm not going to get it, or I am going to get it because I know what kind of writer he is. I see, Big Finish have got this, and I didn't enjoy that one, or I did. What I'm trying to say is, I don't always go on that. I don't see, it's written by Nicholas Briggs. And I think some of them I like, some of them I don't. It just depends. But this one,
it's like you have a podcast, I have a podcast, yeah. It's not going to be for everybody.
No.
And I absolutely accept that. So if someone wrote me a negative review, I'll be like, well, fine, that's not for you. But, other people enjoy it and that's fine. But I certainly wouldn't go, well, your opinion is not worth respecting because you don't like my podcast.
But there must have been so much pressure to get the first one right in a way. And it just
and I certainly think, and you and I have discussed this kind of off mic before, that if you are somebody who absolutely delivers your opinion about other people's work, as Nicholas Briggs does, as Gary Russell does, blah, 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 they've all reviewed and things like this, absolutely you should be able to take those reviews as well. And I'm going to draw a line on the subject there, but I felt like it was worth saying.
Okay, well, let's move on to release number 2, shall we? Phantasmagoria. So the facts are This was released in October 1999, written by Mark Gatiss, stars Peter Davison, and the return of Turlough, played by Mark Strickson. This also features Nicholas Briggs, David Williams, and Stephen Wickham. This was directed by Nicholas Briggs with music by Alistair Locke.
Oh, Alistair Locke. He invited me over
love
his house,
Alistair Locke. That breakdown score that he did.
Shut up.
So Phantasmagoria, this is where these next releases we're talking about. So I had the Sirens of Time. I didn't actually buy the next lot at the time until the Genocide Machine number 7.
Oh my God. Did Sirens of Time put you off so much that you didn't buy any more?
It didn't make me so excited that I've got to get the next one.
12-year-old Mark was harsh.
I got this years and years later, and it didn't really interest me that much. Listening to it again recently, though, I got through it for the first time ever, I think, and I quite enjoyed it.
This I got at the time. So I got them all at the time. I freaking loved this one. It was super trad. And this is what I figured these big finishes were going to be like. Now, I was quite surprised as you go along because they move into quite experimental territory quite early on, Big Finish. But this is like it's, like period setting, like very florid dialogue from the characters, very, very Richard Mace from The Visitation, very over the top performances, a fantastic villain.
Till next we meet.
We'll see you soon enough, sir. Hanging from a Tyburn gibbet.
Perhaps. Good night, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure. Ha! A pleasure for you to be robbed by Major Billy Lovemore.
Did you hear what he said?
Aye. Lovemore.
Oh, never mind the loss of a few guineas, Jeek. We've just been robbed by the most famous highwayman in London. We'll dine out on this for years.
It's written by Mark Gatiss, and he can write this sort of stuff in his sleep,
It's his thing, yeah. It's totally his genre.
A sort of penny dreadful dialogue, and it's quite grotesque, isn't it? The spaceship, isn't it, like people like hanging from walls and organs and stuff, and I think it's quite memorable, and it has a fantastic score by Alistair Locke. All right,
the award is on its way. I was quite surprised. Because if you say, right, Doctor Who, we're making official Doctor Who again after all these years, radio play, audio dramas, the first companion to come back, Mark Strickson, you know what I mean? It's a bit of a surprise.
It's not true. And in fact, one of my facts is that Mark Gatiss himself is highly critical of Mark Strickson, and says basically he thinks that the weakness in this play is Turlough and Mark Strickson's performance. And you know what? I don't actually disagree. I think he's a little bit wooden in this.
Well, you mentioned that to me. So when I was listening to it, I was sort of listening out for it. And I can see that, especially those first scenes with him and the Doctor in the TARDIS. It just feels like he's reading the script. But, he probably hasn't acted for many, many years when he came back to do this.
No.
But also, as I went through, I was thinking, that's how he played it as Turlough on TV.
You're harsh.
It's not a million miles away. That's just how he did. I mean, yeah, you've got, I don't know, Frontios or something, he got a bit more excitable. But a lot of the time, he did play it like that. And it wasn't so bad.
Action!
Yeah. I actually enjoyed Turlough quite a lot in this. Because he's separated from the Doctor quite a lot, and he goes off and has and he didn't really do that much on TV. Have his own sort of person to talk to and go off with and have an adventure with.
Quincy Flowers and Jasper Jeek.
I really like those characters.
Settle your wig, Master Turlough.
My what?
Let's get out into the fresh air.
Jasper, look. Isn't that him?
Why, yes. Flowers, where have you been? Gad, the fella's as pale as milk.
Certainly doesn't look very well. Where's he going?
Flowers, it's only us. He's running away. Odds fish, my friend. This is the second time in as many nights that someone has fled from the company. I'm beginning to worry.
Come on, Jasper. Let's get to the bottom of this.
Jasper Jeek's played by Mark Gatiss himself, and Quincy Flowers is played by David Williams. And they're two just very good actors, and given this sort of Gatiss florid, overdone dialogue. They just fly. It's really, really fun.
And it's a good genre for the Fifth Doctor as well, because he had the Visitation. It's something he hasn't really had as well. So it is already trying new things. Again, Solo with the Fifth Doctor and Turlough, which is
like, you can only, okay, I know you can do your chronology later, but you can literally only fit this between two stories, can't you?
Do you think that works, those two? That a male,
I think they do it better later
Cardiff?
on. There's a story called Singularity that's very good. And then later on, he comes back with older Nissa and Tegan, and some of that, I mean, the stories aren't great, but I think the interaction works really, really well. Yeah, I mean, is Turlough anyone's favorite character? Is anyone desperate to see Turlough back? Like, in his stories on TV, they ignored him half the time and gave him a handful of lines.
I've got this signed by Peter Davison and Mark Strickson there. He's put to Mark, enjoy.
See, now you've got the cover up there next to you. You could cosplay Turlough. You need to have a shave. You're both redheads. You could get into a school uniform. Oh, hang on. Ooh, I'm getting hot. Sorry.
I'll put up now. When I met Mark Strickson, I've met him a couple of times. I've got some photos with him. It just looks like me and then me when I'm older. It's like me looking 50 years in the future or something.
I do have some facts about this story. So Gatiss says this was designed to be a romp and to give Davison a story with some laughs, because he felt like the era was quite serious, and he kind of Resurrection of the Daleks is just basically one long fucking massacre. And then this is something that crops up time and again, is Gary Russell's notes to the authors, because he's absolutely savage. And he wrote, this was his note: "My biggest problem is boredom." That was his note. So apparently, there were some rewrites as we went along.
Well, I mean, it's a great episode 1, and it sets everything up. Yeah, it does sort of flag a little bit, and the conclusion, I think, was, just looking at my notes, the conclusion was fairly quick, I thought. It doesn't go. I can see the boredom aspect of it. I'd say I enjoyed it, but you get caught up in the atmosphere and the characters. In terms of plot, there's a few points, but it's not.
I think where he says that was Gatiss's first draft. That's what he said was boring, and then he went back, and because what he did was he gave all the characters authentic period dialogue. So it wasn't this sort of Talons of Weng Chiang Jago over the top dialogue. It was all kind of and it was like, well, no, I can't understand what they're talking about, what they're saying. And then he went back and he just did his kind of League of Gentlemen style dialogue, and then the whole thing just sort of flew. The working titles for this were The Chamber of Blood and Restoration. But Gatiss is quite critical of this now and says it is all atmosphere and no substance.
That's what I just said. Yeah. Although there's a great cliffhanger. The twist cliffhanger of Hannah is really made me sit up and be like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming.
She's not Major Billy Lovemore.
It's really good. And I forgot to say as well, with all of these early releases, it's not the era theme tune, is it? It's your classic
one. Yeah. Well, actually, technically, it's the John Pertwee one. That's where it first started.
Yeah, and they did in the booklets when they started off with sort of the fake Radio Times listings for all of them in the book.
Oh, that's cute though.
Which is really cool.
They should have.
It's a good, nice touch.
So, Mark, what are your good and bad then for this?
The good was the atmosphere and the setting, and the romp of it all. I've put.
You like a good romp, don't you?
I love a romp, but the bad I put not exciting.
I thought it was quite exciting. I put the good. Sorry, you've generally just put one thing, haven't you? There's me with a whole list. I've just put the good. There's some wonderfully florid acting. The whole cast is performing with gusto. Lovely, simple storytelling. I quite like a simple storytelling on audio, and some really good direction. Davison is wonderfully relaxed on audio, and there's a great villain. So Nicholas Valentine has got a really deep, I never lose sort of voice. He's marvelous. But I put for the bad, maybe it's too simplistic, and also, why the hell wasn't this released first instead of Sirens of Time? God.
Yeah, and I could visualize this perfectly as well. I could see all of this, no problem.
Yeah, I think so as well. But I think the post-production on this story is really good. And I feel like every time they lean into history, the post-production is really good. As they go along, their science fiction stuff just gets better and better and better. Yeah, I think this is just really fun, this story. Like, it's a really fun story.
It's worth going back to if you haven't listened to it. I would recommend giving it another try. Okay, should we go on to the next story?
Let's do it.
The Whispers of Terror. This was released in November 1999. Oh, near the millennium.
1999. Party on!
Party on! This was written by Justin Richards. Stars Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant. Also featuring Peter Miles, Lisa Bowerman, and Matthew Brenner. I think that's how you say it. Directed by Gary Russell, with music by Nicholas Briggs.
First of all, I just want to say the music is very authentic to the era in that it bangs on and on. It's that kind of COD electric score. It's very Time Lash, you know? And Briggs says that he listened to Time Lash for inspiration, and boy, did he get it.
Well, yeah, season 22, Nikki B is in the house. Season 22.
Okay, I want to say something though, because I listened to this one from a speaker rather than in my ears. I think that was a mistake, because I went back and listened to part 1 in my ears like yesterday, and this works a million times better when you're listening to it in headphones.
Because that's a funny thing. I was gonna say, actually, when you listen to any of these, do you do earphones or speaker?
No, generally speaking, it's earphones. But for this one, I listened to out loud, and I wish I hadn't, because a lot of the sound stuff is going from one ear to the other, and it's louder and smaller. And because this is a very kind of orally experimental story,
I'm sorry.
They're doing they're doing really interesting things with the sound design, and I don't think you quite get it when you're listening to it out loud. But when it's in your ears, it really works a lot better. So listening to this, I was a little bit disappointed, but then when I listened to it in my headphones, I was far more impressed.
The best Big Finish experiences that I've had have been earphones in the dark.
Is that because there's no like visual distractions that you can visualize?
I don't know. The stories or the episodes that I get that I love and I enjoy and I get really into, it's that setting before I fall asleep. If it's amazing, I won't fall asleep if I've got
Mark has a habit of putting on audio stories and falling asleep.
But it makes the standout ones really stand out. If I get through to the end of episode 1 and I've not fallen asleep, that is the Big Finish test.
All right, guys, the Big Finish. If you can keep Mark awake for 25 minutes, you've won.
Yeah. I haven't done this in the earphone. So yeah, this one didn't really impress me very much. It sounded very basic to me.
I think there's probably more going on here than you reckon. I think this really uses the medium. This could only be told on audio, and not a lot of Big Finish stories. You can't say that about many of them. There's
It's sort of obvious to try early on something that you can only do on audio.
Yeah,
I love the idea of it. I didn't get into it. I didn't get into the story. It didn't grab me.
It's really interesting because Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant are in this. And obviously, we're just on the cusp of the great Colin Baker renaissance, where, you know, essentially he becomes most people's favorite audio doctor. And who saw that coming? Because they soften him a bit, they give him a companion that really suits him, blah, blah, blah. In this one, there is a lot of contention still between the Sixth Doctor and Perry. And you weren't quite sure about how that played out, were you?
Well, no, because it starts off very season 22 in that TARDIS scene, doesn't it? Don't look at me when you say dim, you know, all of that stuff.
It's a dim and dusty corridor, Doctor. Can't we just leave?
Leave? Leave? You mean go away and never know? Wander for all eternity and never know where we were, what might have been, what was to come.
Don't shout, Doctor. There might be...
Shout? I don't shout. People who have to resort to shouting to get what they want are merely demonstrating the inherent paucity of their argument. It's something that I never...
All right, Doctor!
Point made, I think.
And you would have thought, I know they're trying to recreate that time, that period, but I'm so glad they didn't continue that. This is sort of a one-off in that respect, that they really started off with that scene as if they've just come straight from season 23. And you said it softened a little bit throughout this. I didn't get that, really.
I felt that first scene was they were really at each other's throats. And then as the story progresses, they're kind of working together a lot more. But you go forward to something like Ish, and it's softened completely. And actually, do you know what? I'm going to be bold and say I think at the point we are now, the Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant combination is the strongest that Big Finish has as of this moment. Because Maggie Stables has ducked out and Sheridan Smith is no longer doing audios. There were certain combinations that I would put a bit higher, but I think that Colin Baker, Nicola Bryant, they've just got like 20 years of chemistry behind them now. and
they've done all those spin-off videos together.
They have, yes. But I think it's really, really strong. But yeah, perhaps these were quite humble beginnings. It is very catty and very bitchy in places.
Perry didn't have much to do in this.
No, I know.
Hardly in it.
And as they go along, they learn how to give her more things to do, don't they? Like again, I'll talk about Ish again. Like she gets her own subplot in Ish where she's got a companion and she's investigating, and she's smart as well in that. She's written as really smart. She's here the Doctor's companion in this, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Well, hardly that even. But it's a good guest cast.
It is. Well, you've got Lisa Bowerman in there playing the villain. Now, we
love Lisa Bowerman, but she's Bernice, isn't she? So if you're familiar with those, and you just hear Bernice.
Like in terms of villainous performances, this is incredibly uncharismatic. I would say just go for it. If you're going to be a villain, just go for it. If you're playing another role in another range, and she just sort of lowers her voice a little bit, it's a bit bland. I was quite surprised.
I think bland sums up the whole thing for me here. And you have Peter Miles, and he's classic Nida, but he always sort of plays it a bit Nida. Everything sounds, I just imagine it as Nida whenever I hear Peter Miles.
He's playing a blind character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Again, it's something you can only do on audio. So we can hear him talking to another character, but actually that's not another character. That's Vistine Crane, isn't it?
And also he can then explain things that people can explain things to him and the audience at the same time, which is very useful.
That's very clever though. That's a really good device. And as we go along, we'll see lots of different narrative devices that Big Finish uses in order to, like, there's newscasts and things like that where you can explain the action, because sometimes the dialogue can be very oh my God, those tent poles are rising into the air in front of me.
Yeah, exactly. But here it's okay because of all the audio stuff. And the standout moments for me were when they're listening to these recordings over and over again and the words change and you listen to it again. That's the perfect use of audio medium. I would have liked more of that to go through, and it changed more and more. And
there's some creepy moments though as well with the sound design. There's a bit where a man's attacked and there's like laughter ringing and whispering voices and things like this. And again, I think works much better. Like maybe try this one in the dark in headphones,
Yeah. You get the cliffhangers, while they're not amazing, it starts off a great, I'm sure Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor, has had the same cliffhangers throughout all of his stories. There's so many of my mind, it's in my mind, my mind.
You not do that when I'm taking a drink.
How many has he had in all of his Big Finish stories? No!
Slipback vibes, because in Slipback, every cliffhanger is like, no, Perry!
Yeah.
Got to get to Fennell. Got to stop. To stop.
Broadcast will commence in 40 seconds.
He does that. So that is very Sixth Doctor Colin Baker. He gets the most of those.
They learn to calm that down as they go along. He gets far less of those as they go along. In this story, it's particularly bad. There's one brilliant one. He's like, I know what you are now. You are the voice of Vistine Crane. And it's like, tone it down, Colin. Bring it down. I love Colin Baker. I love him to pieces. He's my favourite Doctor. But boy, sometimes he's up there in the fucking stratosphere, isn't he?
I know. But you've got to do your cliffhanger ending. You've got your cliffhanger acting, haven't you?
What's your good and bad for this then?
Good was just the concept of it and the way that he uses the audio medium, as they say.
What? It's an audio?
No, the way that the bits, like I said, with they change the audio and the voices. And
if we had to listen to that bloody speech one more time.
Dreams of Empire.
It's very over the top.
Dreams of Empire. Dreams of Empire.
Dreams of Empire. Sorry, go on.
And the bad, I just put the execution of the sound and the editing. Some of those bits where they're like the literal whispers of terror, I suppose you'd call them, are a little bit. But again, if I tried it in my ears, I might have a different opinion of that. But it didn't stand out enough for me.
I put as good, an intriguing use of audio, very clever in places. I think there's some good twists in this that you're only able to achieve on audio. And I just put Colin Baker. I mean, I think for every Colin Baker story, I will just put Colin Baker. But do you know what? He's loving doing this. And the bits where he's doing like all the investigating and things like that, man, oh man, there's just no one finer on audio. I'm sorry. He's loving it. Bad, I put Lisa Bowerman is Bernice Summerfield.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to say Lisa Bowerman was bad. It's like, what?
I don't think it's a great performance, if I'm honest. I don't. It's adequate. It's unmemorable. And it should have been more memorable than it is. Her death is memorable when she goes off in that car and it crashes. I put it's awkwardly directed in spots, which is kind of what you said. And terrible cliffhangers. I've got some facts though. If you Harvey Summers, who did the post-production, was very stressed out making this, and said to Gary Russell, next time I want to do something simpler. And to be fair, this probably was a fair challenge to kind of realise.
Yeah, absolutely.
After reading through episode 1, get this, Gary Russell was 2/3 through episode 1 and it was already 45 minutes long. So it had to be scaled back a lot. Apparently, Dreams of Empire, that played out like tons and tons of times and I had to cut it right back. So given how many times we hear that bloody speech in this, there was more. And Justin Richards says he wanted to write the Colin Baker we should have got with a love of language and enjoying himself. And I think he achieved that.
Yeah, and actually this could be a solo Sixth Doctor story. You don't need Perry there. He could carry that and be that character that comes into the Museum of All Antiquities.
I don't know. Don't you love that bit at the beginning where he's winding her up so much because he's like, I never shout. People who shout to get their own way, are on very shaky terms. And he winds her up to the point where she shouts and then he goes, point proven. There we go. He's such a bitch, I swear.
Let's move on to the next one then. The Land of the Dead.
Do we have to?
There's always one.
Oh,
and it's this one.
This was not great.
So this was released in January 2000.
The first month of the new millennium. And this was what we got?
It was written by Stephen Cole. Stars Peter Davison and Sarah Sutton. Also features Andrew Fetz from Auton.
Who is he in Auton?
He's the soldier. And he's married to Verona Shard in real life.
Verona Shard or Castleton? Joe Castleton?
Verona Shard.
then he's amazing. Donkey, lift your tail up, lift your tail up, lift your tail up. I should explain that Verona Shard from Autumn #1 has a jazz album out there, and if you don't want to listen to Land of the Dead, and why would you, it's shite, go listen to Verona Shard's jazz album instead.
By Gary Russell with music by Nicholas Briggs, back on the decks.
Nicholas Briggs, man. He's doing a lot of music, isn't he?
He's out there. He's DJing away. Right.
Can I tell you something about this story? Right.
Okay.
Apparently, this was written in 7 days. Okay, because Sarah Sutton was off on her holidays for 3 weeks. 3 bloody weeks. Who has holiday for 3 weeks?
I know.
She's obviously got a very privileged background, hasn't she? Probably off with her family. Her dad's a pilot, you know, so he's probably very well paid. Oh, sorry. I hope you're not listening to this, Sarah Sutton. So this had to be written in a massive hurry. I think it shows.
This was tough. This was even going through revisiting. This was tough to get through.
I had to force myself through the last episode.
So episode 1 is all right, and these are slightly longer episodes, about half an hour, 35 minutes. Some.
But do you know what I noticed about episode 1? Was every single character introduced themselves and their background. And you know, like, you know, hello, I am the indigenous population man, and I have had an argument with the multimillionaire villain because his dad and my dad. It was just all exposition. None of the dialogue was crafted. It felt like it was rushed.
And we've had the return of Sarah Sutton, Nyssa.
Yeah, she sounds bored in this one, I think.
Well, again, it's the first one back. I mean, she took the script on a holiday. Maybe she didn't have a chance. Maybe she was on the sangrias too much and didn't.
Well, I'm assuming she wanted it so she could read it over those 3 weeks.
Yeah, but she probably, it doesn't mean she did.
She's too busy on the sangrias. You bitch.
And this one's set in Alaska. And
I like that. I like the kind of the wind and the.
It's a good setting. And I like the idea behind it. So you've got this guy that's building. I had problems visualizing this one a little bit because you've got a guy building some house or something in Alaska somewhere.
Well, it's like a big manor house, isn't it? In the snow.
But then they describe this sort of. Has he got like an indoor beach or something behind?
My sea room.
Shame it's so cold. You'd always have somewhere to lay your beach towel.
Remarkable, isn't it? The house is actually built into the rock face. It forms the far wall there.
And is the rest of the landscape so genuine?
500,000 gallons of Arctic seawater and an actual stretch of coastline. All transplanted and reconstructed.
You even have your own virtual tides.
Keyed to the movement of our holographic moon. There's even sea life here. Seals, walruses.
Oh, I'm sure they appreciate it all far more than the real thing. Perhaps that's why we can't see any of them today.
You don't approve, Doctor?
Oh, it's an extraordinary achievement, absolutely. It's only the context I question.
I was like, hang on, what? How can you have a whole sea? And he was like, yeah, they've got like the tide or something like that. But animals living, it's got to be, I was thinking it's not like a swimming pool or something. It's a sea in his house. And you've got this, the character who's like the interior designer. She's a bit annoying.
Monica Lewis.
Monica.
She
Monica.
is literally Tegan, all right? It is Tegan in because she's always bloody whinging all the way through.
And then they find the idea is, again, couldn't really even visualize the monsters in this. Some sort of bone creature thing.
It's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur made out of bones.
Yeah, but they don't. Yeah, but so there's different versions, isn't there? Because one of them comes out the sea and it's made up of all like blubber of like bits of seal and stuff it's eaten.
I've got some here if you want it.
So it all and then there's a sort of skeleton-y thing that they find in the wall that's like trying to get out. And there's a monster. It felt a bit of a mess
around the rooms, isn't there, as well? Because it's doing proper dinosaur noises.
Its visual appearance is terrifying enough, but if it developed the ability to affect its prey mentally, yes, an evolutionary breakthrough. Oh dear.
What is it?
The skeletal creature, it's broken free and we can't stop it.
What?
And now it's moving towards me.
What? How close is it?
12 meters or so, but it's changed. It looks bigger than before.
Bigger? Doctor, you must get out of
And the
there.
skeleton looks different. It's moving more upright. The tail is less pronounced.
Has it seen you?
Oh, yes.
Well, how fast
very.
Doctor, you have to get out.
Nissa, are you there? What's happened, Nissa?
But it's like skeletal. So there was too many different things for me to be like, hang on, what? I can't imagine what this even looks like. And let's face it, the cover isn't the best, is it? It doesn't do a very good job.
There's an alternative cover out there where someone's done it with put it up right now, it's online, of a dinosaur made out of bones. And it looks really, really exciting. Like it looks terrific. That would have been a fun. These copy and paste cut out covers, I tell you what, they're terrible, aren't they? I mean, it's only as bad as Shadow and the Scourge, but this is pretty bad.
It's early days, okay.
There's no bloody excuse. The covers for like the New Adventure Bernice range are absolutely stunning, and they were before this.
Anyway, back to the Land of the Dead.
Okay.
I put everyone's a bit of a non-entity. There's none of them really stand out for me. It's a very small cast, and it's supposed to be. It could have been very much more atmospheric. Everybody's trapped in Alaska in this thing. You've got these 5 characters.
You just
didn't get that.
You just want this to be Winter for the Adepts, don't you?
Oh my god, I love Winter for the Adepts. Well, it's very I mean, it's not very similar, but it could. That's got atmosphere.
The setting's similar,
but this doesn't have that. The most exciting bit, I think, was when Nissa went out in the truck with that guy and they sort of crashed. But apart from that, there wasn't anything. And I really struggled with getting past episode 1. I did episode 2 like 3 times and kept falling asleep. Episode 3, I can't remember. Episode 4.
I need to acknowledge that Mark has this amazing capacity to just start episodes again and again and again if he falls asleep. Whereas I just can't do that. I will force myself through to the end.
I fall asleep and then I'm like, right, I missed that. And then I will start the episode from the beginning. I won't even try and find what I'll be like, right, I know what happened in episode 1. Let's start again with episode 2 and see if I can get through to the end. No, okay, start again, episode 2. Right, let's keep going. Trying to like. And this one, I just had that over and over again.
Well,
it's complete nothing. You know, the atmosphere of Phantasmagoria here. I mean, I'm so glad this wasn't the first Fifth Doctor story, because it'll be like, oh god, you know, at least we know that Peter Davison can have some decent stories. And I mean, they act it all right. He acts it all right. He tries his best, but
I said the good was the wintry setting, and Davison is slowly perfecting his Doctor on audio. The bad was the narrative was really dull. The Inuit stuff, you know, like the indigenous population stuff, like unless you know what you are talking about, unless you are going to write that with nuance and a bit of detail, don't go there. Star Trek Voyager did a Native American stuff and it's painful, and this was pretty painful as well. And he said he read some books and things like this, and I don't know how much he read. He had 7 days to write it, but I wasn't sold personally. It felt very simple and very basic. And I also said Sarah Sutton sounds bored and it's far too long. This one felt like, or maybe it's just because it was so fucking boring, but it felt like it went on forever.
They try and give Nissa a little bit of something interesting. She has a bit of a Delta Wave moment with her psychicness, but it doesn't. But the other characters have that. I don't know. These creatures give off psychic energy or something. And that would have been perfect to build on that a bit more for Nissa. She has a sort of mental.
They do more with that
period. Then that's horrible.
But remember when she goes back to Traken and she has like psychic attack from Quandar.
Yeah.
It ain't enough though to say this. Can I tell you the most hilarious fact about this story?
Okay.
This is right on my street. So there was a line in the original script that was so obscene that Gary Russell went, "You've got to take that out."
Oh my god, what is it? Something about a bone. Something about a boner.
It's meant in complete innocence, though, the line, okay? Because they're talking about eating like the native animals. But someone says, "Have you ever eaten beaver, Nissa?" Russell T. Davies says yes. Oh, dear. The other fact I had is that this was supposed to be the Fearmonger was supposed to be brought out in this slot because it was supposed to be 5th, 6th, 7th. But there were delays with the Fearmonger So this was rushed into production. So I think this was all made in a bit of a hurry, and it shows.
Well, they mustn't have had faith in the audio, because in here in the booklet they put a little map of the layout of the bunker of or the house of where this is.
Is that not supposed to be just like a fun little visual thing? Or you think that they don't describe it well enough within the story to trust that you would know?
Well, it's a bit of an unusual. Here's a map. Here's a map of of the house that we're in and where things are. That's a bit of an odd thing. Well, let's go on to the Fearmonger then.
Now you're talking. Now you're getting my juices flowing.
The Fearmonger, released in February 2000, written by Jonathan Blum, starring Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Eldred. Also starring Jacqueline Pearce, Vince Henderson, and Mark McDonnell. Directed by Gary Russell, music by Grammy Award winner Alistair Locke.
The music was released as part of music from the Big Finish Adventures Volume 1, along with The Marion Conspiracy. I can't remember what the third one was. I don't know, but it's a great release. All right. If you like the music of Big Finish, which I do, and I don't care, you got your chronology section, I'll talk about the music. All right. If you like the music, go find those ones, because those music CDs are extremely good.
So the Fearmonger are, again, one that I came back to later on, and this is the only time I've gone through the whole thing. It was okay, better than I thought. This really tries, well, for me, it tried to recreate that New Adventures Seventh Doctor and Ace.
That's deliberate. Absolutely deliberate.
Because you go straight into the story, don't you? It's your typical, it's the sort of iconography of the Seventh Doctor and Ace. The monster is already there. They've already been investigating it for a long time. They're in the middle of their operation or whatever they're trying to do. When you're straight into the story there. So I'm always trying to catch up. I don't know if I actually like that.
What you're doing right there.
I'm like, oh, the Fearmonger. No, I'm always trying to catch up. I don't know if I like that. I don't really like the New Adventures because of that. But it can
work really well to have the Doctor and the companion already into the story. That can work really well. I thought it worked really well here, actually. I like how he's introduced via the radio show, and he's just making comments, and then he takes over, very McCoy. He takes over the radio show, doesn't he, to get the message out to the terrorist.
Let's just talk the DJ.
Very annoying.
And we're back with another hour of the Mick Thompson Show, home of the real story. All the little things the uni-loonies and greasy PC freaks don't want you to hear. And now it's time for our latest round of official denials, folks. Yep, the officials have spoken, and there is no truth to the rumour that Sherilyn Harper, the new Britannia party leader, was too drunk to stand at the party conference last week. A spokesman for Mrs. Harper said she was fatigued and suffering from a sore hip, and that reports to the contrary were, and I quote, scurrilous and politically motivated.
Very annoying. But I think it's deliberate. He's supposed to be... No, it's written. They're always insulting him and telling him his program's terrible and telling him how he's just making a lot of noise.
What's the annoying? Is it what he's saying and he's just going on, or is it the acting and the way he says it? Because for me,
it's in the writing.
The way he's hey, yeah, and we're here to do this, and we're going to do this, and I'm here to talk about this. No,
it's full of people like that. And he's written with lines what does he call them? Greasy PC?
Yeah, I hate that line. That's the worst. And they put that in the trailer, and I've heard that so much. The greasy PC. No, he just says it in a really annoying way, but I think it's the acting. I don't think
that's a terrible performance. I think that is a deliberately irritating performance.
I don't think that's deliberate. And the worst bit is I think in part 4, when he's out on the road, he's like, oh, and this has happened here, and I can see this happening in front of me here. And it's not even, it's the same as him talking in episode 1. There's no reality to it at all. And it just annoyed me.
I didn't think he was so bad. I did like that scene with the riot, but they do it again in Live 34, is it called? Much later on, where it's all done through newscasts like that, and it's way more effective, way more frightening as well. I thought this was pretty good, actually, and as a whole, I think it's trying to be really edgy, and it kind of gets halfway there because it's all terrorism, isn't it? It's a fascist political party, and then these kind of left, like the extreme left wingers, trying to bring them down with bombs and assassination attempts and things like that. It feels so New Adventures. It's basically like a syringe full of the New Adventures going straight in your neck. And you've got Sylvester McCoy's Doctor being all dark and menacing, which I thought worked really well in this. And Sophie Aldred full of angst and not trusting him because she thinks he's taken over by the fearmonger later, isn't she? And she's like, no, all this kind of screaming and shouting that Sophie Aldred.
She gets shot. That was a shock. That was a highlight for me.
Well, because she's trying to do the bit from Happiness Patrol, isn't she? Where she's like, you could just kind of put the gun down and boom, hey!
I didn't get. The only thing I had to look up on this was, so she gets shot and she's in the hospital, and then there's a nice little scene with the doctor there, and then a few minutes later, she's up and about and all over the place. And I read on Wiki that it's 3 weeks later and she's recovered. I didn't get that at all when I listened to it.
But do you know what I thought was exceptionally good in this was Jacqueline Pearce and Hugh Walters as Sherilyn Harper and her sidekick. And the scene at the end where McCoy brings her down and says, I'm going to leave you to the mob now. You created this mess and they're going to come and get you. That's as good as the scene between the Seventh Doctor and Helen A in Happiness Patrol. It was really strong.
You made the mob, and now it's coming for you.
Ridiculous. We didn't hurt anyone. I told Roderick to make sure they only went after property.
Yes, I thought so.
For the gun attacks, I made sure I was the only one near the line of fire. If there's anyone who should have been that afraid, it was me. And you don't see me smashing cars in the street, now do you? And now everyone thinks I'm responsible for the violence and the bloodshed and the people being dragged out of their homes and beaten and...
But you're not responsible, are you?
No, you're right. Of course not, I'm just...
Afraid?
Yes. But I... Doctor? Where have you gone? Don't leave! Doctor! Where are you?
I didn't think Jacqueline Pearce, she wasn't as central, or she wasn't actually in it as much as I thought she was going to be. I was ready for a Servalan, but we didn't really get that. No. And in my mind, when I'm listening to it, all I'm imagining is her from the Two Doctors in that silvery outfit.
Oh, really? No, I thought she was superb in this. I love the bit where she goes on the radio show and she's like, "You can't even face me, can you, Walter?" She's like spitting poison into her microphone. All your guns and your bombs, and you can't even face me.
Part 1 and part 2, I enjoyed more than 3 and 4. It just started to. I think that's just me. And it was such an abrupt ending as well. I know things were sorted out a lot early on in part 4 with everything, but then with the Fearmonger stuff, and then suddenly it just stopped. That
Did you not like the twist at the end? I really like the twist that the Fearmonger isn't in the people that the person can hear it. It's in the person who can hear it. And that's how it provokes the fear, by making them think it's in other people. I thought that was really clever.
I struggled with the whole concept of the Fearmonger, to be honest.
It's a Fearmonger from the planet Fearmongos.
Because I don't know if that's not it's not my style. I like things in order. This is happening, and so that's why I don't like this one as much, because you go straight in, and I would rather, what's happening? This Fearmonger thing has arrived. Let's find out. Rather than they already know what it is. They're not explaining to me what is happening. I'm trying to catch up. I'm just not.
Okay. I tried very gently to tell you the other day that you like a simpler narrative, and you looked so insulted when I told you that.
I know.
But I think, but that's in no way an insult, because next is the Narrowing Conspiracy. I know we're not covering that today, but I know you really enjoy that one, and it has a very simple narrative. And it's not simple. There's lots going on in it, but it has a very clear-cut narrative. And this was a bit more a bit more complicated.
I think that style of it plus the annoying DJ just
greasy PC. Can I tell you a really interesting story from the inside story? Because this is proper gossip. This one.
Here we go.
This went through a long and torturous process of being written. And Jonathan Blum, who is Kate Orman's partner, and if you recall, Walking to Babylon went through a long and torturous process as well. And essentially, Blum wrote the initial script, and it went through several sets of eyes, Briggs and Russell, and they all said it was really problematic and it really needed rewriting. And then Blum heard nothing for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden it had to be written in a hurry, and there was just lots of feedback coming back and forth. And he says in the interview in this that he came as close to having a nervous breakdown as he ever has writing this script and getting the feedback that he got. And usually with these things, the truth is somewhere in the middle between the person divvying out the feedback and the person receiving it. I'm sure there's a fair bit of blame as to why this wasn't working. But this was the most troubled Big Finish story from script to being produced. And John Blum never wrote it for it again, and he says at the end with some regret that he kept asking Gary Russell, will you have me back, and Gary Russell kept fobbing him off, and then he wrote at the end, I suppose I should take the hint, and that's kind of sad, because I don't think this is terrible. I think this is a pretty good script.
If you like that style, and Jonathan Blum, he's done New Adventure stuff, hasn't he? So it's perfect for
Eighth Doctor. He did Eighth Doctor with
stuff. So yeah, he's more of a
science CNI, good stories,
Yeah, but maybe he's more of a novels writer than for audio drama.
But maybe this would have worked better on audio. Well, what's your good and bad then?
Do you know what? I didn't actually put a good and bad for this one. But I will say, Seventh Doctor and Ace, great. Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred back together as official Seventh Doctor and Ace, great. I like the cliffhanger. Ace being shot. The cliffhanger, that was another moment where I was like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming. Bad, like I said, you thrown into it. I didn't get the concept of the Fearmonger myself, personally. Sorry. And stuff like it's supposed to be 3 weeks later and things. I just didn't pick up on certain things, but maybe it's one that I will go back and concentrate on even more, I think. And then maybe I'll enjoy it more. But it wasn't easy for me to listen to. It wasn't an easy ride.
I have no comment. So my good is Seventh Doctor and Ace. I said the same thing. Mm-hmm. Just their chemistry. Jacqueline Pearce and Hugh Waters. I thought it had good twists. Sorry, like the end of part 2, and I thought it was a very novel concept, the Fearmonger, and I won't say this too often. I thought Sylvester McCoy was excellent in this.
So you're not a fan of Sylvester McCoy's acting or Sophie Aldred's acting on occasion?
Neither, generally, and as these audios go on in stories like The Rapture, it is very troubling. Colditz, some of their stories, they are the weakest thing about those stories. And I think they both can do okay on TV. I'm not sure audio plays to either of their strengths, if I'm honest. But he's very good in this. And every now and again, in an audio, he's the best Doctor on audio. Master, 1,000 Tiny Wings, every now and again. Damaged Goods, every now and again he's brilliant, and he was brilliant in this. I thought he brings his voice down to that sort of slow menace. It's just your worst nightmare, and I'm like, oh god, McCoy, stop giving me the willies. Oh, sorry. Willies, Sylvester McCoy, put it away. And that ferret as well. I put the bad was this is angst ridden. There's a lot of angst in this. Especially that what's the name of the guy who's having the breakdown
Oh yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah. But that's New Adventures for you.
It's very melodramatic. I just put Sophie Aldrin, and it's not as subtle as it could be. Like, it is literally left versus right in this, and that ain't subtle at all, you know? I would give this like a solid 7 out of 10. I think it's a good production. I think it has good moments.
So how would you rank them then, these 5?
So I would say, perhaps surprisingly, Phantasmagoria, Whispers of Terror, The Fearmonger, Land of the Dead, Sirens of Time.
Do you know what? I do exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. My God. It could be love, you know, honestly.
Not the best bunch, actually. Not the best bunch to begin with.
But for anyone who thinks we've been too critical, well, I haven't been that critical because we've said some positive things. The next bunch, Mark loves. He loves all of them.
They are my favourites, the next bunch.
I think you're crazy. Some of them are shit. Okay.
So
we're going to do the chronology first this time.
Yeah, okay. We'll chronologize. It's still fairly simple this time. So
How
what
is
I'm
this
doing,
simple?
everybody.
How is the Sirens of Time simple?
Okay, hold on. I'll tell you. So just to let everyone know, so I will be putting these, especially with these Doctor Who ones, putting them where they fit within the TV continuity. So if you want to do a big marathon of TV, Doctor Who, and all the audio and the worlds of Doctor Who on audio within, this is your guide, and we'll build it up episode by episode. So it's really simple at the moment because I'm literally just slotting them in between the TV ones. No problem. It's going to get more complicated when there's multiple audios to fit around.
Oh, can I just add, as a little caveat, though, Mark is not including novels or audios that are spoken to in the third person. Okay.
Yeah, they're the rules. They're my rules. It's your own continuity. Everyone has their own rules. So here we go. So Sirens of Time, you've got your 3 doctors in there, which you would think might be complicated. But in my rules, I go with the latest Doctor within that story. So this, for me, is a 7th Doctor story. And you have the 6th Doctor and the 5th Doctor returning. So I'm not going to put them within the 6th Doctor or 5th Doctor's timeline. This is a 7th Doctor story.
What the Pete Davidson goes, Tegan, Turlo, stay in the TARDIS.
But you're not going to do a chronology. You're not going to watch Warriors of the D and then be like, right, I'm going to go and listen to episode 2 of Sirens of Time now, because it doesn't make any sense. So that's why this is a 7th Doctor story. It's not a 5th Doctor story.
And episode 4, I think you'll find, it's in both of those.
Yeah, but you're not going to do it then. You're doing it 7th Doctor style. So eventually we will build up a whole season of solo 7th Doctor adventures where this will fit. But at the moment, because we're early on, it is just between Survival and the TV movie. So this is just before he gets the Master's remains to take back to Gallifrey in the TV movie. So that's where it sits for me. And the 6th Doctor and 5th Doctor are returning. Then it's not part of their timeline. Okay. Phantasmagoria, again, really straightforward. There's nowhere else for it to go at the moment. Between Resurrection of the Daleks and Planet of Fire, the 5th Doctor and Turlo are off together, having a great time.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I felt like in Planet of Fire, they didn't have any time at all after. He even mentions Tegan at the beginning of Planet of Fire. But I think Big Finish do this a lot, you know. They end up squeezing in great big penises between two. Oh, sorry. They end up. They end up squeezing in great big wads of stories in between 2 stories on television.
Well, yeah, that is the only annoying thing. Because, yeah, at the beginning of Planet of Fire, Turlo's like, do you think Tegan will be alright? And it's like, well, actually, we've had a whole season eventually of Big Finish stuff. Maybe he's just thinking of Tegan. Maybe he's just thinking, oh, I haven't thought of Tegan for...
No, because he says Daleks, those mutated misfits. So we need another story featuring Tegan and the Daleks to take place, a Big Finish story.
Yeah. It is annoying. We might be able to slot things around depending with other Turlo stories, how it goes, but it's just going there for the moment. And then Whispers of Terror is very interesting because we were talking about the dynamic between the 6th Doctor and Perry. It's still that very season 22. I'm just going to put it after Revelations of the Daleks and before Trial of the Time Lord. I'm not going to slot it within season 22 because we'll make up our own extra season 23 of audios eventually. And it's 4 parts rather than that 2 45-minute format. So if I'm doing my marathon of season 22, I don't want a 4-parter in the middle of that. And then what do we have next? Land of the Dead. Easy again.
Who cares where that fits in? Oh, sorry, go on.
Land of the Dead. Between Time Flight and Arc of Infinity, they've left Tegan behind at Heathrow. I think Tegan is mentioned, isn't it? Does Nyssa say, is that where we left Tegan or something like that, I think. So again, we'll build up a couple of seasons worth of just Fifth Doctor and Nyssa stories, which is...
A couple of seasons? Are you joking me? There's an entire bloody library of the ones by the end.
But I think that's a perfect gap because, you know, Tegan has been away for a while. I think it makes sense, that
It does
gap.
feel like in Arc of Infinity she's been gone a little while, doesn't it? And they have had some adventures. So they've been having spare parts, circular time, you know, they've been busy. Okay, so what about the Fearmonger?
Fearmonger. Well, we said it's a bit later. The dynamic is more new adventures.
You ain't including the books.
But I'm not including the books. So we're easy again to begin with. It's not within any of the TV run because it wouldn't really fit. It's post season 26. So between Survival and Sirens of Time at the moment in our little 7th Doctor timeline, which we're going to build up. We'll see. I will put this a bit later because we end up getting the Lost season 27, don't we? A bit later on, and a lot more 7th Doctor and A stories. I feel this is a little bit later on, as near to the New Adventures times as we can get. And it's been, it's set in 2002, isn't it? Because it's been a while since Ace has been in Perivale, so we'll just make a note of that. This is I'm presuming the first time she's been back since Survival, so we'll just make sure she doesn't go back to Perivale and any others first. And work it out as we go along there with references, so easy to begin with.
What ho, hey ho, it's Joe on Doco ho. Yeah, so here we are, back I'm examining my own blog to see what bollocks I talked about all those years ago. And so
was the Sirens of Time the first review you would have written?
I think it was, yeah, it was the first one, yeah. The first of like 2,000 odd reviews or whatever I've written now.
So you sat down, you'd listened to the Sirens of Time, or you'd been listening to Big Finish a little while, and then you were like...
Initially I wrote notes. So I listened and wrote reams of fucking notes and then typed this thing out using the notes. Well, I got to a point about 50 in, I think, where I was like, no, I could just listen to this and type. So I started doing that instead. But let's see what I have to say about the Sirens of Time.
God.
Peter Davison is a revelation on audio, commanding and older sounding. Older sounding. What a wally. I say about the 6th Doctor, he's the first real renaissance of Big Finish. I point out one of Nick Briggs's dialogue, a bit of his dialogue that's really awful. You ready for this? I trust you to drive me naked for a cheese grater.
Yeah, that did stand out. I was like, oh, no. You don't want that on audio. You don't want that at all, but you don't want it on audio either.
I said the individual stories aren't interesting. Everything feels oddly disjointed. And I put Nick Briggs will write and direct far better and worse. I don't agree with that anymore. I don't think he wrote or directed much worse than this.
Well, yeah, okay, so it hasn't really changed that much.
No. I think, generally speaking, I'm kind of in tune with myself, but every now and again, we'll throw some out. Phantasmagoria, I say Turlo was my only real grumble with the story, and he still is. This is a story that is playing on atmosphere rather than mad creativity. Oh, I say it's an incredible coincidence that Valentine's ship just happens to be ready at the climax of the story. Because that is true, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but you can say that about any Doctor Who story, can't you?
It just so happened to needed one last person, and it was during episode 4. But there's nothing here that's especially fresh, but all the pieces are put together with gusto. So Whispers of Terror, I say, opens with the Doctor and Perry being mad at each other, unnecessarily so.
Did you say dim?
Where we are, you said. I did think it was a bit of a strange thing to say at the time. I put, this is what you said. I can never decide if Perry is an integral part of the show or a waste of a character with enormous potential.
I thought you were going to say enormous breasts then.
I say Lisa Bauman makes a surprisingly uncharismatic villain. I'm choosing to ignore that comment. The end of episode 3 is really badly directed. I think that's the one where he's like, "You're destroying my mind."
My mind! No! Perry!
Barry! Oh, I actually say it commits to telling a story as intriguingly and as intellectually as possible. For Land of the Dead, I say the Doctor is saddled with this supremely irritating Tegan clone, Monica Lewis.
I don't think she's so bad.
I put, this is a fine return for Nyssa because she's given lots to do. Bloody bollocks. What am I talking about?
You listened to the right audio there.
Obviously not, no. I think, an unmemorable score. I weren't happy with the music. I put on audio, the dinosaurs look incredible. Well, it's true. You got unlimited budget on audio. I think you could agree with this. Land of the Dead is far too long and poorly executed.
Yeah.
And for the Fearmonger, I say it capitalizes on the Seventh Doctor's strengths, his quiet menace, and it jettisons all of his histrionics. Well, he's not going, Elenya, in this one.
Well, no, I know, but he only does that when the scene requires it. It's the Fearmonger. He's that more serious manipulator, isn't he? So
you skip forward into the Rapture, and he's like, "Hey, it's Dorothy McShane." I put the creature's backstory is handled quickly and efficiently, and I still agree with that. I know you don't, but I still agree with that. Pierce gives a committed performance. Occasionally, Aldred is too hysterical. Yeah,
I think you say that about her every time, though, don't you?
She is so. And it gets worse. Wait till we get to those ones with Seventh Doctor Perry. Seventh Doctor Mel and Ace. Oh, it's awful. I say it surprises you with its guts and edgy storytelling. I think, though, with all of, I'm going to be perfectly frank, with all of my reviews of these stories, I think I was kinder then than I would be now. So where I gave an 8, I'd probably give a 7. Where I gave a 7, I'd probably give a 6. And that is only because I was listening to these as they first came out and reviewing them. And I think as the first 100 went along, they just get better and better at making them. So now I'm comparing those early ones to the ones that come later, and they don't hold up quite as well sometimes.
Yeah. And this is probably one of the worst covers ever.
Yes, it still is. Yes.
Her hair just goes straight into a... You don't know where it starts and stops, do you? She could just be a face with hair.
What is that thing behind them? What is that thing? Is it a skull?
It's supposed to be the monster thing. That's what confused me. Yeah, it's a skull with a... Oh, I don't know what it is. Anyway, there you go.
Terrible.
Right, quiz time.
Oral audacity.
So 5 questions each. I've done 1 for each story this time.
Me too.
Oh, there we are. We're back on track. Okay, do you want to go first?
I'm ready. What was created as a result of the Knights of Valicia attempting to capture the Temperon?
What was created
as a result?
Knights of Valicia. Oh, I know.
Go on.
The Kurgon Wonder.
Oh, God damn it. I didn't think you were going to get that. Yes. And
that's one of the things that I remembered from that story.
What is the Kurgon Wonder?
It's in my mind, it's a big gaseous thing in space, which people go and visit in a spaceship.
Excuse me, I have not just had a curry. It's a temporal distortion is what it is.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Stephen Hawkins. I'll remember that. Okay, well, my question for you is, name all 3 of the Sirens as played by Sarah Moat.
I nearly did this question for you, and I couldn't find them all. I went looking.
Well, you could have listened.
What is it? Elenya,
Alenya.
Woman with Scouse accent. And woman on the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know.
So you only know Alenya?
Yeah.
Okay, sure?
Yeah.
So Scouser with Fifth Doctor is Helen, remember? Goes, Ellen. And he's like, is that with it? Helen.
Oh,
Helen.
Yeah. Superb dialogue there, yeah.
And then with the Sixth Doctor is Ellie.
Oh, okay. I only remember Alenya because you fucking quote her all the time.
Alenya, your name. Tell me your name.
Okay, question 2. What card does the Doctor pick when playing against the villain in Phantasmagoria?
I'm going to say the Ace of Spades. Hearts.
No, that was your second answer. It is the Ace of Hearts because he says a single heart, a Valentine.
Yeah, no. The moment I said it, I visualized the heart, but I said the spade. Damn it.
Man.
Okay.
God.
What's that? 1-0.
I love it when you get one wrong. You get all sweary.
Okay. What year is Phantasmagoria set?
Christ.
That's pretty tough, actually, to be fair. Sorry.
1909.
1702, apparently.
Oh, shit. I was out for 200 years.
They say about a king that's just died or something, don't they? I don't know which one it's supposed to be. Anyway.
We're doing too well here. It's 1-0 to you so far. Okay. Which Shakespeare play does the Doctor quote in Whispers of Terror?
Oh. Which Shakespeare play? Taming of the Shrew.
It's Macbeth, I'm afraid.
I was going to say Macbeth. I thought that was too obvious. Damn it. Okay. Can you name another of Peter Miles's Big Finish appearances? I've got
he's in Paradise of Death, isn't he?
That's not Big Finish.
Big Finish. Have a Big Finish.
I've got 3 here.
Is it Main Range?
All different.
Oh, shite. I can't. Tell me.
Okay, to be fair, I didn't know any of these either. So he's actually in Sarah Jane story, Mirror Signal Maneuver. Makes another appearance as Nida in I, Davros. And he's also in a Bernice. The Adventures of the Diogenes Damsel. What's that?
Diogenes Damsel.
Diogenes. What's the hell's Diogenes? Diogenes Damsel. Anyway, he's in that.
What's it called again? A chrono? Okay. What oil has millionaire Sean Brett made his fortune with?
Fucking hell. I don't know that. Sorry, I do get sweary on a quiz, don't I?
I think you're more competitive than you like to think, you know.
What oil? I don't know. Beaver oil.
No, it's very simple. It's Alaskan oil.
I was thinking of a type. Oh, whatever. Okay.
It's still 1-0. Okay, go on.
Who designed the cover for Land of the Dead? This wonderful piece of artwork which we've been talking about.
Oh my God. Is it Perry Godbold?
It is. How do you know that?
Because I read it in the book earlier when I was looking for facts. Covered by Perry. And it stuck in my head because it was Perry. Who designed the cover for the Fearmonger and designed the cover for the very first time?
Clayton Hickman.
That is correct. That is the right answer.
True or false? Is the Fearmonger the first time that Ace is called Dorothy McShane in performed Doctor Who?
You said this earlier.
I know. It's true. Well done.
2-0. Woo!
We just know our Big Finish stuff. We're just experts in everything, so that's why we just know our Big Finish.
Well, that's 2 out of 5. I would not say that makes us experts. But can you please, for the edification and enjoyment of our listenership, viewership, whatever ship they are, and I'm sure they're shipping us. Can you please tell them what stories we'll be talking about in our next episode?
Okay, so next up we are continuing with the Doctor Who main range, the Marian Conspiracy, the Genocide Machine, Red Dawn, the Spectre of Lanyon Moor, and Winter for the Adept. All very exciting stories for me, and I know these ones so much better.
But that is our 3rd episode to come.
Thank you very much for watching and listening to this. If you can listen to these audios along with us. If you want, you can get, they're on Spotify, aren't they? And from Big Finish, this first 50, really cheap to download as well. So if you haven't tried some of these, give them a go.
And just a little bit of bonus information. We're heading off into all the spin-offs eventually. Dalek Empire, 2000 AD, is that what it's called? Sapphire and Steel, Dorian Gray. We're going everywhere. We're going to go into the whole spin-off-y universe of Big Finish.
Right. Well, I'm going to go and lie down in the dark and start listening to the Genocide Machine.
I'm going to lie down in the dark, but I will not be listening to Big Finish.